Turning points change the course of our lives, whether it's a big decision, overcoming an obstacle or tragedy, or taking a leap of faith. These stories of inspiration and resilience are what Turning Point is all about. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Turning Point. I'm your host, Priya Sam, and this week I am so thrilled to have one of my dearest friends as a guest. Brandon Gonez and I worked together on CTV's national morning show in 2018, and Brandon now hosts his own show, The Brandon Gonez Show, which you can find on YouTube. Brandon, it's so great to have you here today.
Hey, Pri, this is exciting.
Oh, it's so good. Look at us both now with our own shows, hey?
I was going to say, look at you doing your thing.
Oh my gosh, and you too. This is like bringing me back to our days of working together. I love it already.
I know. Do you remember those days?
Oh,
I guess we'll talk about those days.
Yeah, we definitely will. You know, it's funny, as I was kind of writing questions and preparing for this, I mean, obviously we're friends, so I know you so well, and I know there have been so many turning points for you in the past couple of years, but I actually wanted to go way back to start here because I think a lot of people don't know what led to your media career in the first place. And the fact that you actually worked in finance before all of this. So how did you end up working in finance?
Oh my goodness. So yeah, it was like really interesting. I used to work, my first job ever was Tim Hortons, working at Timmy's. Okay. So
I also used to work there.
Oh, so you know how to pour proper double.
Yes.
That's
Who
crazy.
knew? We had that in common. I didn't know that. That's funny.
I know. I actually didn't know that about you either. Hold on. So
Yeah.
did you work drive-through or did you work front cashier? Were you in the back baking?
I mostly worked front cash, a little bit of drive-through as well. So yeah, what about you?
Oh, I was drive-through. I was on. I was keeping that line moving. Let's go.
I believe it.
So yeah, that was my first job. And then after I left there and I went to this next place called David's Tea. Have you ever heard of David's Tea?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like this Canadian brand. And this was like right as I was going into university, and I was like, okay, like I appreciate the money, but it wasn't the shmoney, you know, that people needed to survive. So I was able, like I always was good at math, and I was like, why don't I try applying for a bank? Like, you know, if you can do 1 + 1 = 2, and you know a little bit of what interest means, you know all those little things. So I applied and I got into finance, and I was like, oh, I kind of like this. I like the numbers. I like seeing big numbers. I like seeing money. And I'm like, I want to make money. So that's kind of how it all kind of transformed, where I started. And my first job was with the Bank of Montreal. So
Wow.
was
Okay,
a finance guy for a little bit.
Yeah. So you have these kind of like early beginnings in university. You go start working at a bank in finance. Things are going well. What made you decide to pivot to journalism?
So I'm in university and like I'm studying business and like finances, in business as well. And I'm like, okay, I could see myself like running like this bank one day, like I kind of like this, like let's work up the ladder here, climb the ladder. But then after I was like, really after taking a step back and thinking about why did I really like what I was doing is because I was talking to a lot of people. So some people could say I was kind of nosy into people's business, but I was, really just like the conversation that was happening with people. So like, that's when I kind of pivoted, even in my studies, like I changed my career, like my major from like business to communications and journalism. And as I was doing that like route change, then I was like, oh, that means like I started to come to terms with, I think I more want to go into like journalism. I want to do things where I can ask people questions and like get answers from people who can actually make change and who have the power to make change. And so that's kind of how it all happened. I mean, university was just one big mess of a situation. You go in thinking you want to do one thing, then you come out doing a whole next thing.
That is so true and so relatable. Like, I think so many of us start, I mean, you're so young too, right? You're like 17, 18, making this decision about what you want to do for the rest of your life. So it makes sense. I do think it's interesting because, obviously you're talking about like the numbers and the money in finance and then pivoting to this career of journalism, which I think we both know it's not about the money.
It's not about the money.
If
you're going into journalism thinking that you're going to make some money, In Canada, you better take a step back, reevaluate your life.
Yeah, it's true. It's not about the money, but all of those other things like the conversations, the meeting people, getting to know people, sharing stories. I mean, yeah, that's what it's all about. And I think it's kind of cool that you, through your job in finance, realized like that was the part of it. It was the people part of it that you really enjoyed.
Yeah, no, because I was gonna say, like, working in like the bank, right? Like, you really get to meet like people with all different circumstances. Like, yeah, you'll meet like some people who are extremely wealthy, but then a lot of times you're interacting with people who are really just like, they are living paycheck to paycheck, and like, I remember like there would be some stories. I would get calls, and like, it would be like a single mom at the grocery store, and her credit card was maxed out, and she's trying to figure out why can't she make this purchase at the grocery store. And it's like, now my job is to tell her like, you know you know girl, like, your credit card is maxed out, you into overdraft, your interest charges are just crazy. And it's just like, what I realize is that like, I don't want to be telling people that information. I want to be educating people or trying to get them the information where they don't find themselves in that situation, or maybe there's a way out of that situation, or you know what I'm saying? Like, it was just like there was a lot of that, and I just think like, anyways, I guess I say that to say that the world needs more compassion.
This compassion, I'm glad you mentioned that because I feel like that has really served you well through your journalism career too. And obviously it's such an important quality of a journalist. So where did your first journalism job take you?
Ooh. Oh, this small town called Smithers. You ever heard of Smithers? Oh, I told you about Smithers, so you know about Smithers.
I only know about it because of you.
Let me tell you, no, I remember because so when I was in journalism school, like, the professors always said, take whatever job you can get. Any job you can get, take. So I remember like I was applying all across the country to places I could not pronounce. Okay, to places I could not pronounce. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And I remember I got this call from this place in BC, and the news director's name there was John, and he gave me a call. Area code 250. Never seen it in my life. Okay, but when I looked it up, it said Northern BC. I said, whoa, okay, let's see this. And he did the interview with me, and he let me know that it was a VJ, a video journalist. So basically, a video journalist is where you do everything. When I talk about everything, I'm talking about shooting, editing, writing, piecing it together. You have to do radio stories, convert that to web stories. It was like you were it. And it was in this town called Smithers. So the main station, okay, the main hub of the station was in a city called Terrace. So this one TV station served a geographical area larger than most European countries. Okay. Wow. And this job in particular was in one of their remote locations in Smithers, a town of 5,000 people, which was located about 200 kilometers inland, right? Of BC. So to get to the main station, you had to drive 200 kilometers.
But what you said there about, in school, you do get that message from your journalism profs. Like you take whatever job you can get right out of school. And, a lot of like, I guess, you learned how to be really efficient there. Like you said, you were doing everything on your own. So
including cutting my hair.
And you cut your own hair. On top of
that haircut that I took going out there was the last one I would receive.
How long were you out there?
Ooh, I try not to think about that. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I was out there for approximately, 10, 11 months.
Okay.
So I was, I was like, okay, 6-month mark, I'm applying other places. Not because I didn't love it, but because I was ready to, be in a bigger market.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so we did such a good job, okay? 3 months in Smithers, I got the promotion to go to Terrace, where the main station was. Okay, the main office with like 12 people. So then I went there, was there for about 6-7 months, and then applied, and then to a next job, and I got a next job in Regina, Saskatchewan.
Right. Oh, I forgot about Regina. Yes. Okay.
Yes. No. Regina was a little vibe for a hot second in life.
But you always kind of had wanted to come back to Ontario, right?
Mm-hmm. Toronto was home, and I knew I needed to get back home.
So Regina, and then was Barrie right after that?
Yeah, then Barrie after Regina. Yeah. So after putting on my cowboy hat, I was like, I got this job offer in Barrie, Ontario, which was, for many people who don't know, it's like an hour north of Toronto, hour and a half. So I was like, I'm gonna take that job because then after, I'm like back in the time zone and can see family.
I know we kind of, in like showbiz, we always talk about like people getting their big breaks. And this really happened for you when you were in Barrie. CTV's national morning show, Your Morning Came Calling. So I kind of want to revisit that moment because I was part of the story later on, but tell me about how that all unfolded.
Oh, you want to know? It was actually kind of crazy. So I had gone to Paris for a little vacation with my friend, and I had landed back in Toronto. So the phone was off for like 8 hours because it's like an 8-hour flight. And when I landed back in Toronto, I turned on my phone. I was getting all these notifications, like text messages, IG messages, people, all those DM little things. And then some emails were happening. And then I was going through my emails and I see this email from this woman who worked at the show. I was like, what? And it said the show's name in the subject line. And so I opened it and I read it and I was like, what? This doesn't seem real. This can't be real. But it was real. They wanted an interview. So.
Oh, what, like, I mean, I remember going through this similar experience, and what an exciting moment to get that email. And then you went through the interview process. Obviously you got the job. What do you remember about like getting back to Toronto and starting at this, going from Smithers, BC, Regina, Saskatchewan, Barrie, Ontario, now you're on the national stage. And, we should remind people that this is a step that most people never get to in their careers in Canada. And you ended up there in such a short amount of time. So
yeah.
How did you feel?
Well, it's kind of crazy because I was like, I always wanted to work in that building, 299 Queen Street West in downtown Toronto. And then it's like, I've always wanted to work on a national show, because I just felt like there was so much goodness to give to the country. And so I was like, getting that, email was like, whoa, it was like validation for all of that hard work. You put in a lot of work for, the end goal, which is to get to whatever your dream is in this broadcast world, which was for me was to get to a national show. And then you get it. And then you're like, okay, so now I want to make the most of this moment. And now you want to give your all and show why you deserve to be on this stage. And so I was like, all those years of hard work paid off. So to all the haters, eat dust.
I mean, honestly, I'm sure there were some people who were jealous, like surprised. I mean, like it just in the sense that like you were a very different personality for that show. I mean, I think that you fit in so perfectly, and it was exactly what they needed, kind of, this, like somebody who was young, who had a different perspective. Like you really brought in, a lot of important elements from your, Jamaican background as well, which I think resonated with a lot of people. But I imagine it was hard, at some moments, like dealing with some of that criticism too.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, the broadcast world is a dog-eat-dog type of world, and it's very, homogenous when you look at people who are mostly on the screens. And I'm not just talking about that show. I'm talking about all across the country. You deal with people who are just, there's a limited amount of spots, coveted spots, and there's, like, an infinite amount of, like, talent who wants those spots. So naturally, it's going to create, like, this dog-eat-dog mentality, and it's going to fester jealousy, and it's going to fester like, a lot of like negative energy. And it's just like, block that type of BS. But, what you got to do is like, there's a lot of times, I'm not going to lie, there was like some difficult times and difficult days because not everybody's nice. There are nice people, but not everybody is nice. And when you're walking into spaces where not a lot of people look like you, I know it was tough, but you always try to remember like who you are, and like all those experiences in the past kind of equipped you for what you were about to endure or what you had to endure. And any negative people, you just had to really just block them off and just say a prayer for them or just, wish them well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I definitely had some very similar experiences. But, I think the reflection from viewers was so positive. I mean, your energy, your quick wit, it really captured the hearts of people right across the country. And after your morning, you went to CP24, and you went viral so many times there. And for any of you who are looking for a compilation of Brandon's viral moments, go on the Brandon Gonez Show YouTube channel. You can watch it. I just went back and watched it last night, and I was like dying. But I think for people who know you really well, for me, when I watched that, I was like, this is Brandon being Brandon. Like a lot of it is kind of just who you are. Like, would you agree with that?
Yeah, because you know what? Like when I started off my career, I was like, I thought you had to put on this show in a way, like this persona of what whatever a reporter and news anchor was, and then I'm like, all this is so fake. Like I don't know about you, but like when I watch that stuff, I'm like, this is so fake. Like I'm gonna change the channel. I want the realness. I want authenticity. So, as you get more comfortable with yourself, then you're more comfortable, presenting yourself to the world. And the reality is not everybody's gonna like it. And as soon as you come to, to terms with that, everything gets a lot easier.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny when people ask me now, what was the hardest thing about being on TV? That's something I always say is just being yourself. Because you're right. You do at the beginning, especially, you feel like you have to, act a certain way or put on a certain like cadence and way of speaking. And the hardest thing is to find that balance, I think, of being your best professional self, but also just being yourself, because that's what really resonates with people.
Yeah, that's what people really want to see. That's what people connect with, right? Is like people, right? It's people. And I think like the rise of social media has really destructed, how mainstream media presents itself, like this world of this so-called perfection. But then what they deem as perfection is really, really subjective to a certain type of culture. You know what I'm saying? And the world is the rainbow. So we should be seeing the rainbow. And it's okay to talk, in different, have an accent here or whatever.
So on that note, do you remember the first time you thought about having your own show?
I'm trying to think when it actually first crossed my mind, because I think for me, it was just kind of excelling at what I was doing in the present time. I mean, there were some people like when you were out and about, you meet like the general public would be like, "Oh, you should definitely go for that. You should definitely aim for that." And I'm like, yeah. In soon time, for me, I was just trying to find my bearings, like try to walk before you can run, because I always feel like if you you got to go through the checks and balances before you ultimately get the the big star, if you want to call it that. But then I also realized, in that ecosystem, in regular Canadian media, that reality probably wasn't going to happen. So you just had to kind of make that happen.
And you really did make that happen, because, you took a leap of faith. You're kind of paving this new path with the Brandon Gonez Show on YouTube. Tell me about like some of those early days of planning, and what's been your vision for the show?
Well, don't forget, you're also paving a path too, eh? Let me give you your flowers.
Aw, I appreciate that.
But yeah, as like the planning is like, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of like foresight. I think it's, people always see the end product, so they see the finished, product. And so it can sometimes look like it's easy and everything like that, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. And I think it really requires a strong team to make something look easy. If something looks easy, it's because there's a stronger team behind it who's done all the grunt work to make it look that flawless. So yeah, no, I mean, like getting the vision to where it was took like months of planning, many hours, sleepless nights. Priya, I always tell you this like sidebar, we're not perfect. We don't try to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes. We'll probably continue making mistakes, but we're going to own up to those mistakes, and then we're going to learn from those mistakes. You know what I mean? And then I think that's life, and that's what makes being authentic special. Right? That's the importance of being authentic in a way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think like that it's like one of the best parts and one of the worst parts of being an entrepreneur, because you do get to try all of these new things, and sometimes something just works and it's a beautiful thing, and it feels so good. And yeah, there are those moments, like you said, when something doesn't work, or you make a mistake, and you kind of have to just learn from it. But it sounds to me from what you're saying that those kind of high points are really outweighing any of the challenges.
Oh yeah, yeah. We celebrate the small wins a lot here.
You've had some great interviews since you started. Is there one that really stands out for you, or a moment that that has happened since you launched the show that kind of stands out as a big highlight for you?
Been a couple of pretty cool moments, but I think the coolest moment was definitely when we secured the Prime Minister's interview, because I think for our little messy show, it was like validation in a way, and it really forced us to kind of up our game even further. Like there was a lot of work that went on in the background that people will never know about, but that is just gratitude to the team who just makes it look so easy. But to make that look what it looked like, and then it was kind of like like we're doing our thing, like it was kind of like, yeah, that was pretty cool. Like I don't think in past life, when I say past life, I say past life like broadcast life, you know the networks or the places that I was working, they would have granted me that interview to do. They probably would have given it to somebody else. Well, sometimes that's when you got to step on your own, and then you go get that interview for yourself. I think we did a pretty good job, not to pat ourselves on the back too hard here, but I think things turned out pretty well. I mean,
Yes, you did a great job. And I love that you're giving this credit to your team too, because it's true. What you see on the screen or what you hear on the airwaves, of course, that's important. But there is so much work that, of course, that happens behind the scenes as well. And that's actually one of the things I also love about the Brandon Gonez show, is that you do get these like behind the scenes sneak peeks. You get to meet some of the people on your team as well. And it's really, it's this thing that you really never see happen in traditional media. So did that happen for you organically, or was that always part of the plan kind of from the beginning?
yeah, it was always kind of part of the plan, because what we didn't want to do is kind of pretend like, you know, we were perfect, because we're not perfect. So we always wanted to kind of show the process in terms of like how we got there. So like if we're talking about a certain subject, I mean, the reality is like everybody has an opinion on something, I think it all starts at the fact that we all have to acknowledge that we all have our own biases, right? And so we just have to acknowledge that. And then after you're able to move the conversation forward. So, I mean, we've always wanted to like show like what people on the team thought. So that's why we kind of do those behind the scenes moments, or like if there is a certain topic, like we'll talk about it. And I love an intense, debate, because I think like naturally people out there in the world also are having these debates. So like, let's see it actually play out on screen. And then people can feel validated in their thoughts, or they could also potentially learn something from a point of view that they never actually, thought of, a different perspective. So I don't know. We're trying. We're trying. Hopefully, it's working. If it's not, we'll pivot. I mean, we've been pivoting. So we do this dance called the pivot, and we just pivot.
I like it. It's like constantly iterating and changing and seeing what works and what resonates. Yeah. It's very cool. And I think that there's so much value in that perspective of, you might not agree with everything, but if this sparks an interesting conversation or gets you to learn something new and see something in a different way, then of course it's worth it. And that's the point, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like for example, like you, right? Like you interview so many different people, and like you've had some really fascinating interviews. But I'm sure like when people are like expressing like some stuff to you, like it's almost like you probably never thought you were gonna get that answer from them, and you're like, wow, like that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the cool things about the kind of show you have, about what I do, you have this flexibility that you don't have in a traditional media setting, where you're bound to 3 or 4 minutes. Everything's live. The questions are mostly decided ahead of time. And so if something interesting does come up, or like you said, you get an answer you don't expect, it often isn't time to explore that further or to go there. And that's one of the things that I think that it's really cool that we both get to do now.
Yeah, because I feel like, I mean, like when you watch, like, I don't know about you, but I don't even really watch a lot of, legacy media anymore because I find like you don't really get the context. Like you get like, they just scratch the surface and then it's like, we used to be that too. But, we tried to go deeper, right? We did. No, you and I did. We definitely did. But it's like, yeah, it's like they just scratch the surface and there's so much more to the story. Sometimes there's not just two sides. There could be actually 3 or 4 or 5 sides to a story. And it's like those sides actually need to be told, right? Because then that's what the actual story is. And so, yeah, no, I love the fact that we have these platforms where things can kind of just live and breathe and people can really soak it all in,
Yeah, I 100% agree. Take me back to the launch of your show for a minute, because ahead of the launch, you released this really beautiful video about how you chose your launch date. It was January 17th, your father's birthday. You mentioned in the video that he died from cancer when you were very young. That must have had and really continue to have a big impact on your life and on your family.
Yeah, it was, that was actually a moment that played out behind the scenes. And I'll just explain how when we were planning out like, okay, launch date and everything, I was like, I knew I wanted to do it at the end of January because I had left past life at the end of December. And then I was aiming for like a month later. And we knew that we wanted to drop on a Sunday. So just in meetings, I was like, why don't we just try aim for like the third Sunday in January? Didn't know what the date was, didn't know anything. Like we're just like, let's just aim for the third Sunday in January. And so like we were talking, and then after I think somebody asked like, what is the actual date for the third Sunday in January? And so then after we looked at the calendar, and then after I noticed that was the date, and then after it was just like goosebumps, like just like natural goosebumps. And then after it was almost like I took a second, I was like, I don't even think it was goosebumps. I think it was just like energy, kind of saying like, this is the right choice. You are on the right path. This is the right thing to do. And it just kind of reaffirmed those decisions and just reaffirmed everything that was feeling that it's all going to be okay. There's a lot of anxiety happening right now, but this is what is meant to happen and just continue along the journey. And so, yeah, it was crazy. It was surreal because I think everybody had gotten goosebumps in that moment. But it was a beautiful moment. And like, we wanted to share that because like, that's actually what happened. And that's like part of like the importance for us to stay true to like the process that is unfolding. And we want everybody to be a part of that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so, yeah, it just obviously was really meant to be. And what a beautiful moment, and that it kind of happened so serendipitously that way as you were making this big change in your life too.
Yeah.
Do you remember much about your father?
Yeah, we showed a few photos and stuff like that, and anybody who saw that video would see, true Jamaican, like through and through, and it's like that. I hold that side very dear because that's what I look at as like fundamental to who I am, for example, and that's also like some of the most vivid memories I have too. So it's like I never want to lose that. And so I celebrate that because that is who I am at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I know he would be so proud of everything that you have accomplished. So it was really cool to have that look back. And I know you always thank your family, and I know they've been a huge support to you through everything and through all of the changes and the success that you've experienced too. So I love those behind the scenes looks at your family. It's actually been just over 6 months now since the launch. What do you hear from your viewers about the impact the show is having on them?
We we try to really keep our ears to the streets here, and we're hearing like a lot of positive feedback, which is like really, which is feels good. But we also know that we can always do more, so we're always aiming to do more. But we're launching this new thing called mind your business. You know, mind your business, not like mind. Not like mind your business, like don't be nosy, but like mind your business, like like mind like these small businesses that can help them grow. And
Very
so,
cool.
thank you. And so, what's been really cool is like the response that we got to just when we put out that video calling for small businesses to write in or to tag a small business in the comment section. I think we received more than 10,000 responses. Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
it's crazy. It's actually crazy. So, I mean, now the challenge is actually choosing. I think we're doing 8 segments for My Dear Business. So to choose 8 from 10,000 is going to be extremely difficult. But that's what we really want to do. Like, we really just want to be like an outlet, like that people can like feel like it's theirs. And that's going to be true to who people are and accurately reflect what is happening, and a place where tough conversations can actually happen, and people don't have to be afraid to touch those tough subjects, and we can actually allow them to breathe. And yeah, I don't know if I'm making sense, but am I making sense?
Yes.
Or am I
Yeah,
making balance?
absolutely. No, you both. You're making sense and dollars. And your show really does have that feel too of like, touching the tough topics, asking the hard questions, not being afraid to kind of push the boundaries a little bit. I did want to ask you about, being a person of color in the entrepreneurial space, because I think like a lot of spaces, it is a traditionally white space. How have you found that? And what's your advice to other entrepreneurs of color?
It's been really interesting. There's not like, wait, even in the media space, there are barely any minority or racialized owned, media companies in Canada. So that has been quite difficult. Um, Fortunately, I do have a few mentors who own their own businesses, whether it's in law or um, finance and stuff like that, that I've been able to lean on to get some advice in terms of just starting up and everything like that. Um, but I think that if there's any piece of advice I would give to any young Black or person of color who's looking to start something of their own, is to try to seek out somebody who's done it as well, because there are like simple mistakes that you can avoid, like that could either save you a lot of time or money, for example, that somebody who has your best interest at heart will advise you on, you know? And then I also think it's like, don't just go running to start something. Like, do the planning, like do the groundwork, lay the groundwork, lay the foundation. Like, those are very important steps that sometimes a lot of people might think like is not important, but it is important, because you got to put down your plan on paper first. So you write it into fruition, right? The universe can see it, but also that you're jotting down the things that you need to jot down, because you don't want to miss a step, right? And get an accountant and get a lawyer. Like, those two things are important. Go find those things.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think just the example that you're setting too, there's so much to be said for representation, right? And for other people just being able to see themselves reflected in whether it's, a business or a media platform. There's certainly a lot to be said for that.
Exactly. And also, like, we have like we try to like our team is primarily made up of like pretty young millennials, and I think it's so important that, like, whether you're Gen Z or millennial, and like, there is opportunities, but you also have talent, and and like we want to harness that talent, and like your ideas are valid, like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of times people, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I guess I'm trying to say, like, young people, I feel like, are often put to the sidelines, like, oh, your ideas are not valid, or they can't come to fruition, or those don't make sense, but they do make sense, and you just have to find the right place to foster those great ideas, and you always want to make sure that you have an atmosphere where those ideas can come to fruition. So
I'm totally with you. There's so much to be said for those fresh ideas. And so often in job descriptions, we see like 5 to 10 years of experience needed, and like, where's the value in people who are innovative and have fresh ideas? I mean, I totally agree with you. Like, when I'm hiring people for my team, that's what I'm looking for too. Like, I think that a lot of the technical skills, like using Canva or posting to social media, whatever that is, you can teach that. But when people have those innovative, fresh ideas, you can't teach someone that. Like, that's what you need.
Life experience, like perspective, right? Like, you don't want people from all the same walks of life who've all, covering the same income level or whatever. And like, that's like ridiculous. Like, you want people who've gone through things in life, like who know struggle, like, who can relate to the realities. Like, that's what life is about. And then like, when you have all these great people, like with great ideas, and you get a combustion of beautifulness. We call it goodness here. It's goodness.
Well, yes, I certainly appreciate you sharing the goodness with us. And before I let you go, I do want to ask, I know we started with this turning point, you leaving your career in finance, pursuing this career in media. It has taken you right across the country now to your own show. What are you most proud of as you kind of reflect on that turning point and the decisions you've made since?
That I didn't allow the haters to stop me from doing my thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of haters out there, and a lot of supporters. So not to give the haters too much credit, but I think that's an important lesson for anybody. Like, if you have a goal, if you have a dream, like, block out the haters, block out the deniers, and stay focused and listen to the people who actually support you, and surround yourself with that type of energy. And then lead with love, and allow the universe to, do its wonderful, miraculous things.
I think that is the perfect way to wrap this up, because you are certainly someone who always leads with love, with empathy, compassion. I've experienced that since I've known you, and it really has been such a beautiful thing to watch you really flourish. I mean, you always did well, no matter where you were. You're that kind of person. But really just to see you come into your own with your show. I'm so happy for you. I'm so impressed, and I can't wait to see what is next for you, Brandon. It's been a pleasure to be on this journey with you, and thank you for sharing your story and your time with me today.
Wine soon.
Wine soon. Absolutely. Wine anytime.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm so excited for you. I'm so proud of you as well. And, look at us. Look at us.
Look at us. Now we're going to have this interview to look back on in 5 years and be like, remember back then when we were just getting started? And look at us now. I'm excited for that.
I'm excited too. Thanks for having me on, Priya.
Thanks again, Brandon. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. We hope you'll join us again for our next episode. And until then, take good care of yourselves and of each other.